Okay, so let's start our discussion on where we left in our K to 12 reforms, and we said then on all those three dimensions, the intellectual, the physical, and the spiritual and emotional, we are missing out a lot of things which we have to include in our play, question, reflection, and story framework. And those things, just to repeat, are the global awareness, the information literacy, the history of the thing, the story behind, science, the financial literacy, how I think about saving and selling, my health, artistic literacy, civic literacy, environmental things, these days the digital media, everything. But does it mean we are going to really make things even more complex, which are already very cluttered? Our kids are already going to school with the donkey bags, load of bags, and our teachers are already overburdened. So if all these things are coming, what does it mean? Are we going to even put more burden? No. Reforms always bring simplicity. Reforms will always make things simpler and beautiful. If there is a reform effort and it's resulting in cluttering things, that means there is something fundamentally wrong in the approach and direction, and we must pause and rethink. How we are going to make things simple, that needs to be clear. So the problem that came to my mind was, okay, is my teacher, will he get deterred? Oh guys, I am already kind of poorly managing things and spend a lot of effort and all. No. Things have been cluttered over the passage of time because we haven't thought how to make them beautiful and simple. This is how the overall journey looks like, and it's very, very, very simple. As we discussed earlier, it's the language first, the language development. Then we start inserting maths. Then science as a little bit gets more focus. And it is sort of in the existing framework, you can say the level 8 or grade 8, where the chassis is built. If the child has liked something, had developed an interest in something, it has developed. And if has developed then fear or anxiety from something, that's also deeply ingrained, and it is very difficult to take that out later. But things are more simpler than that. What I'm saying is that there is only one focus here, language development, in first 2 to 3 years. But then what? The maths. Maths has only 2 critical concepts, and till class 6, the critical concepts are number sense. I can count and I have a sense of counting, not just the numerals, fractions, and my sense of space, which is essentially a unit square, and more important, the triangle. That's all. If I have taught my child fractions and triangles, 2 things properly in my elementary grades, that's all. These are the only critical things on which almost 2 dozens of the concepts in the higher grades are dependent on. So what about science? Science is a huge, lots of things. In the future it's coming, geography and chemistry. No, it's not. We have to look at what is critical and what is the fundamental basic block, the fundamental building block of the thing. In science, the things are even more beautiful and simpler. We humans have so far only discovered 3 forces, F1, F2, F3, let's call it, the gravity, the electromagnetism, and the nuclear force. No, we haven't yet discovered any other thing. And we have only discovered 3 particles: quarks, leptons, and bosons. Rest everything falls in this set. We take one of these forces, let's say the gravity, and we start talking about how we fly and how satellites work and how the planets are working. We take one of them, electromagnetism, and we become electrical engineers, and the chemistry evolves out of it. And the third is the nuclear, how sun burns and how stars collapse, right? So this is so fundamental. If I have inspired my child on atom, the chemistry later turns into biology, because biology is essentially the chemistry of life. When the molecules become too complex and they become sort of, in the science language, get emergent properties and become intelligent and start talking to each other and start behaving like a system, we call it the chemistry of life, and that is biology. So essentially, biology is a branch of chemistry, and chemistry is one of three forces of this. So if these couple of stories about atom, about cell, about how particles talk to each other, we are done. That is the essential. And it's very inspiring for the children to listen to these stories and do some of these things with the pendulum, with the magnifying glass, with the flame, with everything. So our role in this process as adult is facilitate. Children learn themselves. They have a knack of learning. That's how they have been created or evolved, whatever words we use. But we have to facilitate this process, and that's the important thing, a message of today. Things have to be simple, and they are going to be simple because we have cluttered them unintentionally over a period of time, and our role in that is to facilitate that process. And that is what we need to, as a teacher or as an educator or as an adult or a parent, understand. Facilitate means there will be along the journey some barriers which are natural and which are coming. Unintentionally, we should not be creating those barriers, which at the moment we are. Those barriers are our choice of language becomes a barrier. The very first thing in the very initial process. When I say, Ali, how are you? Come in. Ali doesn't know what is how are you. He speaks Punjabi and he speaks her mother tongue, and he doesn't know how to respond to how are you. To all that, my good intention, how are you, has created a barrier. My response to mistakes is a big barrier. How I frown becomes a barrier. My wrong timing of intervention becomes a barrier. If I don't let the child flow, whether he is reading or playing or whatever way he is learning, if I am trying to fast forward, that's a barrier. If I am trying to be perfectionist, that's a barrier. If I don't know that each child is different and they learn at a different pace, and I am fooled by the law of average, this is a grade 5. No, it's not. We must understand that in each group there are differences, and in different groups there are similarities. So on the face of it, I have put them in group 1 and KG, or in 1 and 2, but certain children fall over there, and most of the children fall over here, some children fall over here. Am I facilitating the process which keeps every child in a challenge zone, but they never get motivated? That is what the research we have to embed in all our play, question, story. And these are the things, and the one thing that comes out naturally out of it, these are our training areas. We know how to talk, we should know how to respond to their mistakes, We should know how not to label them. We should know when to intervene with them. If in an interaction on a certain day or in a period of time, my intervention as a facilitator should not be more than this. Children learn more from each other. So all this time should be the activities which children are doing among themselves. Yeah, and obviously they have a level where they become proficient and do the individual projects, and all we do is most of the time problem solving in all these areas. Children should go back that we are here to solve problems, and that's what they do all along, using the language skills, using the number sense, using the observation skills, and coming back with the patterns which they have learned from the nature. So the areas that we train ourselves are letting them think. It's the most important areas, and we have thousands of ideas for the teachers so that they can develop thinking skills, and we have to train ourselves on how to make good question. That's very, very important. And now we have decades of research coming to us on our desk, which we are going to share in our next lectures, how we learn and what works and what doesn't. And you will be surprised, most of the things that we are doing is fall in the category which doesn't work. And that's all unintentional. And each child will have some strong points and will have some problems. Each teacher has to be a learning expert to deal with those problems. So I just wrap it up with this. It's going to be a simple and beautiful process because we will be focusing on the critical building blocks. That's all rest fall in line. Number two, our role in this is to facilitate the process. Thank you very much.